Bad Boys Ride or Die. Released June 7th, 2024. Directed by Adil El Arbi and Bilal Fallah. Written by Chris Bremner, Will Beal, and George Gallo. Starring Will Smith and Martin Lawrence. Rotten Tomatoes score, 64%. Metacritic, 54. IMDb, 7. Welcome back to Real Reviews. Like always, I am your host, Lee. Today we are talking about Bad Boys Ride or Die, the fourth entry in the Bad Boys series. I meant to review this movie a week ago, but things just didn't line up. This is getting recognition as one of the biggest movies of the year after a decent opening weekend. Do I think it is worth the praise? Do I think the audience is right? Or do I think the critics are right? Let's talk about it. In my opinion, this is a movie that gets a lot right, but somehow manages to come off as unremarkable. It is ultimately a generic guns-blazing action movie, with comedy that falls flat at almost every turn. Let's get to some questions.
In what ways does the film address themes of aging and legacy, particularly through the lens of its action hero protagonists? Are these themes effectively integrated into the narrative?
This film does address these in the narrative. Between Marcus having bad health from years of stress and poor food choices, and Mike having PTSD and anxiety after years of people he loves being harmed just to get at him, they try to show how everything impacts them. I honestly think it handled Mike's story pretty well and handled Marcus's absolutely terribly.
What role does humor play in the film? How does it impact the tone and pacing of the story, and does it complement the more serious elements?
The humor in the movie was terrible in my opinion. It didn't really impact the tone or pacing because they don't really give it much time to sit. Almost like they had the joke and just hoped it would work in the finished product.
How are the antagonists developed in this installment? Do they offer a unique challenge or perspective that differs from previous films in the series?
This is another area where the movie doesn't really seem to work. We have our main bad guy. He is an ex-Army Ranger who either works for the cartel or is going against the cartel. I don't think they ever really fleshed that out. The only challenge offered is caused by the bad guy one step ahead trope. Action movies don't often have compelling challenges in them, so I didn't really expect it here either.
Reflecting on the film as a whole, what could be its potential impact on the future of the Bad Boys franchise? Does it open up new possibilities for sequels or spin-offs?
I could easily see there being an Armando movie or show continuing his redemption arc, but the most likely one would probably be Kelly and Dorn, as they are already a duo, and have similar chemistry to Mike and Marcus but are also significantly younger. This movie makes me hope that Smith and Lawrence don't come back to do another one of these. Both men are near 60, and while Smith looks ageless, I think playing the well-dressed playboy cop doesn't really work for him anymore. That is it for the questions, so let's get into the movie a bit more. The pacing works. By the time the movie was over, I didn't feel like I was sitting there very long, which is good given that it is basically a 2-hour movie. The story is fine, if a bit bare ultimately. If you saw the trailer, that is the whole story right there. I think Armando and Judy get the best storylines in the movie. I also think the acting is fine, occasionally feeling like they hammed it up a bit, but nothing terrible. The action is solid, as is expected for a Bad Boys movie. The weirdest part in my opinion about the action is that the best action scene doesn't even have the main characters in it other than them offering commentary as to what is happening. Another thing I found a bit jarring about the action is a few methods in which they do some of the shots. One is them transitioning between security cameras and what is happening in that location. Another one, and maybe one of the worst looking scenes in the movie, is a moment where they seem to go to a body cam so it looks like a first-person shooter, but then the camera flips to look back at the actor, and finally they throw the weapon and the camera is locked to it so we go spinning down a hallway. One thing that does work well within the action is the effects. Almost everything at least looks practical, which movies like this honestly need. So I know I had some minor spoilers before, and there are going to be some more here as well. Marcus's character is insane. In the beginning, he almost dies from a heart attack. He then comes back with the awareness that he isn't meant to die yet. From this point on, he does absolutely ridiculous things, and they are played for a joke the whole time, but I can't think of one that comes off as funny. So between Marcus making the protagonist not really work and the bad guy being a shell of a character, I didn't find the story to be compelling. I am aware that action movies often have more threadbare stories, but your characters at least need to work to make it worthwhile. I will say that the story ultimately works even with the characters feeling off, but that is probably a benefit of the story being very simple. So my rating for this movie is a 5 out of 8 or a 6.25 out of 10. In the end, I didn't really find this movie to be particularly enjoyable or memorable. If I was asked in a week what the best part was, I really wouldn't be able to have a great answer. Even from a typical audience look, I can see why people love it. It is a popcorn action movie. But that is also exactly why critically it isn't doing great. It is a fun movie with very little there to get into. Like always, if you made it this far, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this, make sure to like and subscribe. I typically have 2 videos out per week, real reviews like this or AI reviews depending on releases. Tomorrow will be a real review of Inside Out 2. Until next time,